The question today is, where is the AFL? These are really serious allegations and devastating allegations of sexual assault and need to be treated as such. But we have heard from the Premier, we've heard from the Swans coach, Dean Cox, a bizarre few words from Swans CEO Matthew Pavlich yesterday. But the AFL, we've got nothing but silence. And it's now that the AFL needs to show leadership. And in a moment, I'll speak to Caroline Wilson about how the league should be handling this. We have a victim of an alleged sexual assault. We have a group of young players who are assisting police. And Victoria Police says it has not arrested or formally interviewed anyone in relation to the matter. But where is Andrew Dillon? And should not the AFL be speaking today, like the Premier, to his credit, did and did well? And I'll ask Caroline Wilson about it in a moment. And I want to know from her, when is the AFL planning on speaking? And what does she expect them to be saying? And why haven't they said it yet? So McClure in The Age is reporting that the players are set to be suspended under the bringing the game into disrepute clause. But these police allegations are indeed far more important and far more serious. And our thoughts are obviously with the victim in this case. But I'm interested to hear Caro's thoughts on this. And why is the AFL staying silent? The AFL is the overarching body, and the AFL has many, many different organisations that sit under their umbrella in relation to respect about women and certain issues that relate around the respect for women, both within the game and outside of the game. So why are they staying silent today? But I do need to get to Caro. Caroline Wilson is, of course, award-winning journalist and member of 3AW Footy. Caro, good afternoon.
Hello, Jack. How are you?
Good. Now, my first question, obviously this is a very sensitive story and our thoughts are with the woman or women involved in this, first and foremost. But my question to you today is, where is the AFL in all of this?
Well, they're working pretty hard on reaching some form of early resolution, in fairness, Jack. I mean, clearly there are two investigations going on here. One is a police investigation involving an alleged sexual assault. And the second one, the AFL are working through with the Sydney Swans and coming to almost at a conclusion about how they're going to handle the behaviour of 4 or 5 players who were involved in some sense at some time in the early hours of Monday morning. Now, you know, it's been reported that one player might be part of an ongoing investigation, but in terms of the AFL and Sydney Swans investigation, this, I think, is going to come under the rules of, relating to conduct unbecoming. And it's a negotiation, it's a decision, and I think the AFL, look, do they need to put out a statement and say they're horrified about this? They've put up the announcement of the All-Australian squad because it's so sensitive. They have been working very closely. Tom Harley, the AFL's executive, former Swan CEO, is working very closely with Matthew Pavlich on this. And, of course, look, the Commission, I'm sure, Craig Drummond, is being kept involved in all of this, and so is the Sydney Swans chairman, Andrew Pridham. I think what's happened is the Swans have put out a statement. I don't think their CEO really should have come out and spoken yesterday because he didn't really have much to say, and his language was disappointing. I understand, it was a day of shocks and he's new in the job, but it was a pity that he said that the players found themselves in a situation when clearly they put themselves there. But I think there's so many allegations, Jackie, and the story keeps changing that I think the AFL, well, they tend to be careful at the best of times. They're certainly talking to journos and they're trying to keep people in the loop, and they're working really closely with Sydney, and Tony Keane, the head of their integrity unit, is the former top policeman, is working hard on it as well. So I don't think until they make a decision on the players, and, I just heard Sydney Swans executive Tom Chadwick say that some players have now got separate representation. Now, I don't know if that relates to the AFL investigation, but I don't think it does. I think that at the very least, the players are going to be stood down by the AFL and Sydney for at least 2 games. And I'm not sure whether in the eyes of some that will be enough or whether the AFL think it will have to be for the whole final
Will the AFL reserve its right, though, and I think this is well within their rights, depending on the result of any police charges, if and when they were to be laid. Surely they'll have to revisit that, though, if and when things change.
Well, if the police investigation is ongoing, no charges have been laid. There haven't been any formal interviews take place. But I think if it's established that it's less than the 5 named players, I think what will happen then is I think he or they will have to be stood down pending the result of the investigation. And that's, that's what happened with Tanner Bruin at Geelong,
yes,
who was ultimately cleared. It's such a highly complex situation. We don't know whether the player or players are denying that a sexual assault took place. We know what's been alleged, and we know how long these things can go on for. So yeah, it's very complex. The only thing we do know for sure, and I understand your point about the AFL, but I think they've been trying to get all the facts as well.
Yeah, I just wonder because the Premier, Caro, came out today and I think he actually spoke very well about the situation and how a lot of women would be feeling today within the industry and outside of the industry. And it just sort of made me think, well, the Swans have, however poorly, have come out, but the AFL there is nothing that we can report on that they have said yet. And I wonder, is that going to happen tomorrow? Is it going to happen tonight?
I think the Swans hope it happens tonight, but they can't answer that either. And I just hope this isn't too much of a negotiation. I hope it's an outcome. And look, what we do know, and please don't think that I am for one moment disrespecting or playing down what might have happened here.
No.
And the fact that there might be a victim, there is an alleged victim here or victims. This is a huge football story, and it remains, and I'm sure it does to you too, an absolute shock to me. Maybe I'm naive that footballers would do this at any time, but certainly at the time they did it on the eve of the finals. I just can't understand it. I can't understand what they were thinking going out so late. And, Tom Morris said last night on Agenda Setters, and other people are suggesting this too, and I think Sydney are going to have to look at this, but the allegations of a drinking culture at that club, I think certainly, if you look at what happened on Sunday night, have been laid bare, quite apart from far more serious stuff.
The NRL has this policy where it's automatic stand down, and we don't have that in the AFL.
No.
Should we?
Well, the AFL does, but it only relates to a more serious charge and a known charge. Now, in the case of Tanner Bruin, he was stood down because he had been charged. No one's been charged yet.
Right. Okay. So you would expect that to change if and when any of these players are charged?
Well, yeah, I do. And again, we don't even know if charges are going to be laid, which is why it's difficult to talk about. But as I say, we can talk about the fact that this was, that using words like, lack of trust and even betrayal, how some other Sydney Swans players must be feeling right now at the moment. I'm not saying that, team spirit and the brotherhood and all of that are in any way relatable to what might have taken place, but it is extraordinary that a club with a famous culture has been so exposed in this way. It is, as I said, a real shock to me.
Caro, appreciate you coming on. And due to the legalities around all of this, as Caro says, the Swans players are yet to be charged, but the allegations are incredibly serious, these allegations of sexual assault. And I appreciate her coming on the program. That is Caro Wilson. You can hear her on 3W and read her report in The Age.
But Laura Spurway joins me, as she does every single Tuesday night. Good evening, Laura.
Hey, Jimmy.
There's a bit going on, to say the least.
There's a lot going on, and I've had all manner of emotions, really, the last couple of days, hearing about it all. And
I want to ask you, because we get the flood of information, there's a lot of questions asked, and then we see all the reactions, because Sunday evening, Monday morning, Monday afternoon it's intense from a football media landscape. Yep. So you get people's initial reactions. Now that you've had information coming in and we've got more that's come to light as we've gone to air, and we'll bring you up to speed with that and what has happened in the day, how have you felt and your reaction to everybody else's reaction in light of what we've learnt?
I think the thing for me is that I've come from a background where, as a news reporter, I've worked on sexual assault cases in reporting. I've been in courtrooms. I've heard from people who've been involved with them. I've spoken to police who conduct these investigations. So even though I'm in the football world and I appreciate we can discuss this with a football lens, I've seen the other side.
Yep.
And so looking at this, what I can say is that the police investigation is the most important thing. It is the most serious thing and it is the most important thing. Not a blazer, not the Brownlow votes, probably not even a premiership, although that'll be hard for people to swallow. The police investigation is the most important thing because these investigations, and we obviously don't know the ins and outs, and innocent until proven guilty, I accept that, but they can have life-altering consequences. If you get a conviction, a sexual assault conviction, that'll change your life more than anything that could possibly happen in the football world. Now, I'm not
100%.
suggesting that any of these players will be convicted. We don't know that yet. But this is how serious it is. And for me, it's just recognising that that's the most important thing. And then all the consequences around it are around what ends up happening in this investigation. I think of everybody involved. I think of, obviously, the players, but their partners, fiancés. They've got to go home and talk to their partners about this, about their involvement in this, on what is meant to be a work trip. It's a work trip. It's not okay in any circumstance, but this is a work trip. Your employer or the AFL is paying for you to go and do your job in a different city. You come back to that hotel that you're not paying for, that they're paying for, at whatever o'clock in the morning, and are now at the centre of this. So it's a work trip. I don't think that should be lost, which is why I'm hoping that they do get sanctions from the AFL, irrespective of what happens with the police investigation, because clearly there's some ill discipline here that is separate to looking at whether or not this ends up with a criminal case.
Yeah, and that's a part that I've found eyebrow raising, how quickly it turned into, call it the 4 points, the footy stuff, because as you highlighted there really well, that if you're looking at the order of things that you should be concerned about, that's like 8, 9, 10 down the batting order, if you will. Anybody who's involved in a police investigation of either side of it, allegedly, perpetrator or victim, it is an incredibly difficult period of your life.
These investigations are some of the most harrowing investigations
Correct.
you can go through because they're so difficult to prove.
Great description of it. Yeah.
They're so hard to prove.
Yep.
No one wins.
No one.
No one wins. And we saw that with the example in Geelong, that even though Tanner Bruin was cleared, he went through a year of hell.
Yep.
And the other person in that case, I know, you say whatever you want, he was cleared, but the ordeal for the people that are involved in this is never pleasant. And so that's the number one thing you've got to think about. AFL players work in generally a supportive environment. They will get support. The alleged victims probably don't have that network around them.
Yeah, and you highlighted really well there too is the collateral damage it causes.
Yep.
So,
families, partners,
yep.
teammates, AFLW side, the Swans. They've got a double header this weekend, Jimmy, that they were so excited about at the SCG, the women. And this is what this week is going to be about.
We've had a number of reports coming in, and we'll try and bring you up to speed. This was reported in The Age. Key Sydney players are set to be charged by the AFL with bringing the game into disrepute and face suspension for multiple matches. 2 senior competition sources speaking on the condition of anonymity have confirmed this to the masthead that the AFL will enact Rule 2.3a, which prohibits conduct unbecoming or likely to prejudice the interest or reputation of the AFL. After the players returned to the team hotel in Melbourne in the early hours of Monday morning following a night of drinking. The league's action is separate to the Victorian Police investigation into an allegation of sexual assault at the Pullman in East Melbourne. If the players are found to have broken an AFL rule, they can expect to be suspended for at least 2 matches, which would be unrelated to the police investigation.
I think that's fair though, because what's not in dispute is the fact that there were a group of them that went out until very late, early hours of the morning. And is that the conduct of a group of professional athletes when you're on what is a work trip? I'm not saying you can't go out and celebrate a win and have a drink, have a palm or whatever you want, but there's a bit of a difference, I think, Jimmy, between having one and getting back to a hotel at 3, 4 a.m.
Massive difference. Tony Jones, just shortly on the Channel 9 News, read out an email from Andrew Dillon, which was addressing all the staff at AFL House.
It starts off with evening, everyone. He says, while the matter remains under police investigation, it raises broader issues for our game and our responsibilities as a sport. The sexual assault allegations currently under police investigation are serious. He goes on to say, the woman who made the report to police is entitled to privacy and care, and that should be respected. Andrew Dillon then goes on to say, our first question should not be what this means for a football club or its season. It should be whether our actions match the standards we stand for and what the community expects of us. He goes on to say, notwithstanding the ongoing police investigation, the AFL and the Sydney Swans will consider the broader conduct of players, and more information as it comes to light.
Got there eventually.
Why is that in an email to staff and not something that the AFL can put in a public statement and say to all of us?
Yeah, that should have been the press release or
and
at
this
least
is
read
what
out.
was so disappointing about Matthew Pavlich yesterday as well. You can't comment on the investigation. We understand that. But why could you not say, we're taking this seriously. We expect the highest standards of behaviour from our football players, from our athletes, from our staff within this club. We do not condone any violence or disrespect towards women. That's not saying that that's what those players have done. That's making a statement on what should be a basic standard of behaviour. And Andrew Dillon has just said that to his staff. Why couldn't that be put out as a position that the AFL has today? Why can't you just reinforce that you will not stand for this, but you still obviously need to wait for the outcome?
And you can still put the presumption of innocence and things like that into the statement. But that statement there from Andrew Dillon should have been just spoken into a microphone about 12 hours ago.
I don't understand why you can't broadly say how seriously you're taking it. Say what he said to his staff, that, you know, the football issues come second to the broader conversation or the broader police investigation. Why that? And again, like I said, Matthew Pavlich saying, you know, players found themselves in this situation.
Oh, they were disappointed.
Like someone put them there.
Mitch Cleary has added a little bit more meat on the bones just recently on 7 News.
He's the only one of the Sydney Swans players called to speak to officers at West Melbourne Police Station. Officially, Victoria Police say they only spoke to a number of people at Pullman, East Melbourne. However, no one has been arrested or formally interviewed. The Sexual Crime Squad has taken charge of the investigation, trying to work out what happened between 4 and 7 a.m. yesterday.
Yeah, so the player that Mitch was referencing
in
his report is Isaac Heaney. So 7 News has gone with the report that he is the one at the centre of the investigation, and he is the only one that went to West Melbourne Police Station to speak with Victoria Police. We reinforce that there's no charge that's been laid, no one's been arrested, but that's the report that 7 News has gone with in terms of who it centres around.
Yep, this is going to get...
Which is why, you know, like I said...
It's going to get a lot messier too.
Yeah, and it is messy. And that's why, for me, I just sit here and go, like, I don't know what to do, Jimmy, when I hear this stuff. I go, what? These people, these players get more training and more education in this space than most of us do in our workplaces.
No, you can't dispute that. You're 100%
I
right.
don't understand.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you understand?
No, because I spent 15 years and, that every year... It was mandatory education. Like, it wasn't pick and choose.
Do you just forget about it when you're drinking?
No, I don't think you forget about it.
I don't know, Jimmy. And maybe I've said the wrong thing there because we don't know exactly what's happened yet. But it just boggles my mind that that this is what's going on and we're having a conversation about this. I mean, we work in a workplace. If you or I were being investigated by Victoria Police for an allegation of this serious nature, I wouldn't be sitting here. I wouldn't be talking to you. I wouldn't be working.